Welcome back to the Daddy Debates podcast, brought to you by MusicFootballFatherhood.com. And this is the conversation for dads who want to have some more open conversations about fatherhood. Nothing is off the limits. And today we're talking about something really interesting, which is dating as a single dad. So we've got some great guests with us today. For me, I'm going to be a bit like listening and asking questions. So I'm probably the only one that hasn't been a single dad. So I'm really learning from you guys. I want to hear your opinions on what you think. So let's introduce ourselves. Over here we have...
Yeah, I'm Alec, contributor at MFF team. Been around MFF for a couple of years now. Ready to get stuck in on our conversation today.
I'm Machel, part of the MFF team, teacher, blogger, journalist, media, all that kind of thing. Am I looking forward to today? Yeah. Don't know what Elliott's going to do to me today, but I'm looking forward to it.
And we've also got a very special guest. Thanks for being here. We've got Adam Pugh. So we're really excited about getting Adam down. So talk about yourself, introduce yourself for people that don't know you.
Yeah, so I'm Adam, anti-racism campaigner, writer, and first-time guest to MFF. Happy to be here, man.
Wicked. Cool. So dating as a single dad. So Valentine's Day is coming up. Very timely topic. So first of all, what is it? Taking away the dating side of things, what is it like being a single dad in terms of what do you feel the perception is of you? How do you manage that with your day-to-day lives and day-to-day work? What are the kind of challenges as well?
So I've got coming up to a 7-year-old and a just turned 10-year-old, and I've been a single dad for 7 years now, coming up to 7 years now. So I guess one of the first, if not the first blog I wrote for MFF, I kind of touched on that, and I'm a full-time dad. There's just me. There's no other. So there's no, I don't hand over to somebody or all the rest of it. I'm on it all the time, and from the early days right through to now, it's been a journey. All kinds have happened, but where I'm at right now, there's still a lot of challenges, obviously, because two young, energetic boys, lots to say for themselves. They're both at two ages in their lives where testosterone has just kicked in. So if you read Stephen Biddulph's Raising Boys, one of the ages is 7, one of the ages is 10, and so at the moment there's a lot going on for both of them. But the challenges change, right? When you want it full time, you've got to find a way to put systems in place and processes in place and things in place to deal with the fact that at times you've got one in each ear, going at it, wanting a piece of you, and rightly so wanting a piece. They're kids, they're growing up and all the rest of it. And so, you have to find a way through that, because if you don't find a way through that, you're gonna crack up, you're gonna lose the plot, it's gonna all come crashing down. And as a man in particular, it was apparent to me what I needed to do in terms of my well-being and my emotional well-being, my mental well-being, to make sure that I did whatever was necessary. I've got a saying, I've got an affirmation, an inspiration board that I use every day to remind myself of certain things, and I look at it before I start the day. And one of the pictures on there is a meme that I've shared before on my social media, and it says you can't pour from an empty cup. And I live by that, where being a dad full time, everything is one to the other. They do various different clubs and all the rest of it. I have to make sure I look after myself first and foremost, so that I can give the best to them.
Does that resonate with you, Adam, as well?
My experience is kind of different in that, I'm not a full-time dad, so I have my son 4 days a week. So I have him every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday every week. So that it often feels like full-time, because you've got juggling work and then being a parent on the weekend, so you're very limited in terms of time, in terms of social life, in terms of being able to kind of do anything, especially when it comes to dating. But that journey for me, my son is about to turn 4 in a couple of weeks, and I separated from his mum when he was 1. So for the first year at least, do you know what I mean, that was just a period of healing, a period of like getting resettled and adjusting. And then, I think it's only really been in the last year that I would really say that I've kind of really felt like I've been in a space where I'm kind of like ready to sort of start dating again and to be thinking about that. But yeah, that journey has been challenging. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just there's so many different things going on. Do you know what I mean? In terms of dealing with the emotions that you have of the resentment and the bitterness that I've had of not being able to see my son every day, and the challenges of how do we manage our relationship so that there's continuity in terms of because it's a lot for a little child to be going back and forth every week and to be spending so much time and just trying to figure out what that looks like. So yeah, it's been challenging, but you learn a lot about yourself, for sure. But yeah, it's been hard.
Yeah. What do you think, Machel? Does that resonate with you as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think some of what Adam just said, certainly. I think Adam's probably further along in the journey. I think something that Adam said about, I can't remember if you said in that first year, and I feel like I'm in that part, where so much is going on in your head. Because as a father, you're trying, I think your number one thing is, I need to do the best I can by my child. So even before you can even contemplate dating, I think you're guided. Well, you should be guided. You should be guided by that principle. And if that's your guiding principle, to be honest, it makes it very hard to then find enough emotional space to connect with anybody on a deep level. I think you could connect with somebody on a very superficial level, and then essentially that means nothing to you. But I think it's hard, isn't it? Because if you're trying to raise a child and you've had a breakup and all of the myriad of things that come with that, probably what you're saying to yourself, because you've got so much to say about this. You've got conflicting emotions of you deserve to be happy. And it's almost like you're saying to yourself, I deserve to be happy, but when do I deserve to be happy? Even though, so you're putting a time scale on your happiness, even though you shouldn't be, because that doesn't make any sense. When do I deserve to be happy? And I think my experience is that it's very hard to justify to any future potential person that, and I don't think I'm there yet, that anything comes before my child. And I'd like to think it will come. Well, no, sorry, let me scratch that. Not that anything comes before my child. What I mean is that I can at least put things on a level playing field. That's what I mean, not above my child. Right now, though, I'm struggling with the notion of anybody else's time superseding that of my child. I haven't even got to the point of my time superseding that of my child. So I'm struggling with the concept of how do I bring somebody else into that. And also, even if I tried to, it wouldn't be fair on them. Maybe it would be. Maybe they'd be fine with that. But I'm not. Do you get where I'm coming from? Like, there's so many difficult.
So are you looking to find someone who's already a parent as well?
Well, what you've raised there is another concept of the whole dating as a single dad thing, because all we've dealt with so far as the three of us talking about it is what it means for us. But if you then go into the dating aspect of it, I would then say, who wants to date a single dad?
Yeah, hear that.
The society we live in, it's almost. Please, anybody hit me up if you think I'm wrong. It's almost acceptable to date a single mum, because in society the expectation is that if there is a child in a one-parent situation, the child's probably living with the mum more than they're living with the dad. So the idea and notion of dating a single mum is almost like a thing.
Yeah.
The idea and notion of dating a single,
it is a bin.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So the idea and notion of dating a single dad who is taking an active participation in the raising of their child, that's a big thing for somebody to get over.
So Alex, how did you? Because obviously you've been through that.
He hit it, slap on the head, because as a full-time dad, when I started dating, and obviously we can talk about the whole dating bit as another thing itself, but I don't know how many times I got the question, because the assumption was always that I would only have a child at weekend or whatever. So what? Full time, you have the kids in, or even I'm not single anymore. I've been dating for a couple of years, in a relationship for a couple of years now. But prior to that, the expectation was that I would have lots of free time, because that's it. The situation must be that I wouldn't be a full-time dad. So when I was just upfront and I'm a widower. Okay. Right. So, because I got bored of having those conversations, rather than dropping it to them lightly. I was just like, I'm a widower. So there is no kind of whatever. I am there, be all and end all and everything there. So this is my situation. Yes, I can find a way to make, when I got to that point eventually, which was another, perfectly valid point, relevant point from Mash there, where it took me a while to get to that point, a few years to get to that point. But the expectation was that absolutely I'd have lots of free time to be able to go off and do this and that and all the rest of it. And I'm like, well, no, so I'm gonna have to sort out childcare.
What was the kind of response when you would say you're a widower? What was the response?
Not good. It was not good. I'm just being real. It was not good, because firstly, culturally we have a thing, we're talking about death anyway, right? And all the rest. And people generally don't know what to say. And I get that people don't know what to say. But people don't not want to talk about it. So that, can we ask what happened? So there was that level of uncertainty. But also as well, I guess, again, Lash's point, my boys come first. What is there for us to even debate about? Why are we even having a conversation? They come first, and then this is my situation. If there's room that I can find, which I'm trying to see as I was going along that journey of dating, if there's some room for somebody else, then it might work, but there might not be. I might kind of say, actually, you know what, it ain't working for me. But yeah, I would say a good large majority of women didn't want to accept that. Didn't want to accept that at all. Didn't want to accept that. Actually, also as a single dad, I was independent. I'm like, I get that sometimes there are some dads who are unsure of what they do and what to do and all the rest of it, but actually, and there are lots that aren't. And I was one of the ones that I'm not. I'm on it. What they're wearing, what getting dressed, blah blah blah. I remember I used to go to take my boys to I think at the local library, which on a Saturday, first Saturday of every month, and it was targeted at working parents who couldn't get to during the week things that they raised. But I used to go to it anyway. Take both the boys there, and it would be mainly women there taking the kids. One or two. Maybe one other guy, and then one or two couples jointly, heterosexual couples, take the child there. And there'd be all kinds of people whinging about their partners and all the rest of it. Anyway, one day I was leaving with the boys, and a woman who I'd not spoken to before, but I'd seen and I'd always said hello to and whatever. She said, "Oh, you're giving your wife a break by taking the kids?" And I'm like, no. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give you the opportunity to just kind of keep your nose out my business, and just kind of, just almost ignore it, but not ignore it. Still be polite or whatever. I said, no, it's. And she asked another question. I'm like, well, blah blah. And she asked something else. So I just said, hey, I'm a widower. And she's like, oh, okay then. But the kids are so well dressed and they're so well behaved. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Brian. I just went because I'm just like, what did you expect? That the kids should be feral, running around, kind of. And she was like, well, you know, my husband, he wouldn't have a clue if I left him with the kids and blah blah blah. I was just like, wow. Okay.
And it's that thing about the perception of dads and our ability to parent our children as well. I mean, Adam, do you feel like, in terms of dating, are you more, I'm not saying you're seeking, I don't know if you're seeking or looking, but are you more thinking another single parent might be a better fit, or are you more open to anyone that comes along?
I'd be really,
We've just met and I'm like asking some really personal questions.
I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts, because I think for me, in terms of where I am on that journey, my preference was and has always been another single parent, for various reasons. One, because I think that there are just certain things that you don't really truly get or understand until you become a parent, and two, just because I would like to think that, I mean, if you're a single parent that is in this situation, you're going to be a little bit more understanding and sympathetic of this dynamic and how it works. However, so I have dated somebody that wasn't a single parent, and that was probably the most serious person that I've dated. And I have found that even in terms of dating a single parent, that creates its own challenges in and of itself, because I wonder how being a full-time carer for your children, how that has impacted your ability to date. Because what I've found is that because I have my son every single weekend, most single mums, their dynamic is different in that they've got their kids during the week and they're free on the weekends. So they're free during the week. Sorry, they're busy during the week and free on the weekends, and I'm free during the weekend and busy on weekends, right? So actually, in terms of scheduling, for us to date independently of children is incredibly hard, right? So you can have depending on what your support network is, you can get a night off to go on a date here and there. That's fine.
Do you feel guilty then?
So I have felt guilty, right? So we'll get to that.
Sorry.
But in terms of like, you can get a night off to go and date, that's fine. But to actually invest in a relationship, that takes time, right? Whoever I'm dating is gonna have to be around my son at some point, right? So that has been incredibly challenging. In terms of feeling guilty, for the first year, so I kind of felt like, do you know what? My happiness isn't the number one priority. This is the situation. Ezra comes first, and I just have to swallow it, and this is what it is. And having him, he fulfilled my need and my desire to both give love and affection and receive love and affection, right? So even though I didn't have kind of like a certain type of intimacy from a woman, I was able to have some type of intimacy for my son that kind of offset that. Where the guilt crept in is because whereas you have your children every single weekend, the guilt was mixed with bitterness and resentment, because when I look at his mum gets to see him, I mean, every day during the week, and then has every single weekend to go out and date or go to the gym or do whatever she wants to do, right? So she can date without having to sacrifice time with her son. She can do both. Whereas for me, it felt like if I take a Saturday night to go out on a date, I am sacrificing time with my child to be able to go and do that, and that's not something that I'm prepared to do. And it took me a while to kind of be able to bed in and get used to that, and obviously now having him 4 days a week, it's a little bit easier. But yeah, it's incredibly challenging, and I wonder, I feel, and obviously I'm not in your situation, but I feel like if I had him every day, I would feel less guilty, or I would maybe find, depending on what my support network is, I might find it easier to date.
I'm not sure there are any rules, because I've prior to my now partner was absolutely for I don't know why. I'm not sure I want to date anyone who's got kids already. So I've dated someone without kids, with kids, without kids, with kids, and then my partner now is their daughter's 20. And in all of that, all the preconceived ideas and all the rest of it, what it actually came down to? It was the individual. It came down to the individual because if the person is like-minded, if you're aligned, whether the other person that you're dating is doesn't have kids or they do have kids, things will just come together, and you'll figure out what it is that you need to do. But the reality is, for me, is that I had to go on that journey before I kind of was able to. Oh, right, okay, that's. Even to say, actually, you know what? That's definitely not what I don't. That's definitely not what I want. Or actually, yeah, I want a bit more like. Because I even had ideas of the type of person they were. So my late wife was a career woman, and great career, worked really, really hard, and that was a level that I was used to for the 12 years that we were together. And so, for whatever reason, I just assumed that the person that I would end up in a relationship with would probably end up being a career woman and this, that, and now that. And then after a few iterations of dating, I'm like, yeah, actually, because I'm mid-40s, so mid to late 40s, so women who are of a similar age or thereabouts, yeah.
I
Well, yeah, you might need to edit this out because I want to view some line. But the same thing applies. But the same thing applies to guys. That they're either single because they're divorced, and there's a reason why they're divorced, or they've been single for a while, and there are reasons why they're single. And there are some who've chosen to be either, they call it really picky or whatever. So actually what I found was that the career women who not had kids but were single in and around my age, or the age that I was happy to date, were selfish. Because they've been on, I'm not saying this in a bad way, I've had single mates in my age, and I got so used to being on their own, so used to being completely in control of their lives and all the rest of it. Having somebody else kind of dictate when you can and can't do it because I've got kids was just not an option, and it didn't take long for me to realise that, okay, that's not going to work then, is it? So, okay, strike that one off the list, what's the next permutation? So, yeah.
But some of it I think is also logistics, right? So it's like, for you as a father that has 2 children, for you to date a mum who also has 2 children, for example, logistically it's like you go from 3 to 6 overnight, and that has massive implications.
Date someone who had 2 kids.
So it has massive implications in terms of like finances and living arrangements and all of this other stuff that you have to kind of factor in, right?
Yeah.
But then, dating someone without a child has its own. So there's no. I mean, there's challenges.
And you did something earlier around whoever you date will meet your child at some point. I mean, so how do you feel about that in terms of, do you think about when is the right time to introduce a new partner to your child, a certain age, a certain length of dating? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, like you said, there's no rule book, right? There's no manual, so you've really got to try and kind of weigh it up. I dated somebody and I introduced them to Ez, and things were going really well. It was great, it was wonderful, until it didn't work out, and I had to not only did I have to go through that process, but I had to watch him go through that process. I had to watch him ask, where's such and such, and can I FaceTime, and to watch him go through that. And for me, that was the hardest part, was watching him go through that kind of mourning and grieving experience. So I think now it's almost kind of pushed me the other way, where I'm like, I don't want to, I don't like, because one, I don't want to inflict that on him, and two, that's not the dad that I want to be. I don't want to be bringing people in and out of my child's life. Do you know what I mean? But that then it makes dating hard, because it can be quite serious or quite intense quite quickly, because I don't want to waste anyone's time, and I don't want to have my time wasted, right? So it's like, this is the situation, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Let's
When you've got life experience, because you know who you are, you're self-aware, and you meet someone who gives you that impression that they're self-aware as well. It's like, well, why am I going to waste time?
Yeah, exactly. So let's have those conversations and let's do that. But it can be a lot. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Do you think about this as well?
Yeah, I'm glad that both of you just said that line there. I think if I think of what I was like prior to having a child and dating, to now being a dad with a child and considering dating, I know I've got no time for quote unquote bullshit anymore. I know I can already see that the slightest even sniff of it and I'm out straight away, and I know that's a direct impact of just thinking, no, I know what I'm about now, and I've got the kid, I haven't got time to play these silly games. But something that I kind of wanted to touch on, and again both of you kind of said some stuff around it, and actually Adam just said it just then. All the thing that keeps bugging me in my head about any potential dating is, and it's not just about me, it's actually about the other person. The role, what level of seriousness can I bring to their life? Because in my head, the number one thing that would hold me back is, I'm not sure I want you to meet my child. And if I ever did, it would have to be so serious. But then, as you both said, there's no rules. So you can't time this. You can't put like right, and by the 6th month this should have happened, and then maybe I would consider, and that's so. But that brings its own kind of fear then, because you can't control the situation, and at the same time, the idea that I'd be like, right, I'm gonna almost date someone, but leave my daughter in the background somewhere as something that I kind of mentioned as this mythical thing that exists. But I'm not really sure I really want you to come and have any. Do you see what I'm coming from?
And that's quite easy to say, like, theoretically, right? But then when you're in that situation, if you meet someone and you start to develop feelings for somebody, you've then got this, you've got somebody that you've got feelings for, and the most important person, or people in your world, and you want to bring those two together, right? Because you want to be able to kind of share that, but also, I want to see how you interact with my child, because I don't want to invest a year into this person,
of course,
and then I find out that actually you don't get on with my child doesn't get on with you, and it just doesn't work. And so it's like it's really, really hard. And I don't have the answer. I don't know what that looks like.
I just don't think there are. It's, you gotta. That was a journey that I went on.
How did you know? Sorry if I just interject. How did your current partner? What was the difference? Do you understand?
Yeah, there was a big difference. So I'm a member of a couple of widowed groups where some are, widowed late 20s, early 30s, and some are, more like early 50s, whatever. And at the time, when my wife died, I was 40. And when I met my partner now 2.5 years ago, she was a member of the group. She was a member of a couple of the groups. And actually, we were all talking about our dating experience. And in fact, it was a conversation about Tinder profiles and what to put in your profile and all the rest of it, what dating apps, and Bumble was not long on the scene, and I can't remember the name of that other one. So we were all having a general conversation in a Facebook group about dating, and I'd already got a couple of friends from the group, both female and male, who would occasionally meet up and do stuff with or whatever. So we actually started talking, but with no intentions of there being, well, I don't remember there being intentions on my side, and don't think there were from her, of being anything more than just, someone who identifies with what we've been through. Her daughter was 17 at the time, 17 and a half, coming up to 18. And so for me, it was like, you're coming out the other end of parenting as well anyway, so even if I had thought there might be something, then it was like, well, no, we're in different places as far as our parenting journey goes. Yeah. And then we met and went on a date. I'm like, oh man. So, I've always had female friends, and there's always been a distinct line between people who have dated. So if I dated someone who's not worked out, I've always said, you know what, I'm not interested in this, let's stay friends or whatever. So the female friends that I've got, but never people that I've dated, have been in relationships with or anything like that. Met her, went on a date, yeah, you feel that spark with someone, whatever, like, oh, okay, what do I do? And then, right, so we went on a couple more dates, felt the same way, and because we'd been chatting online through the group and on the phone and all the rest of it, and obviously the shared history, her husband had died a couple of months after my wife had died, and we'd obviously been through a lot of the same types of experience in and around the grieving and the bereavement and everything else. There was a connection, a definite connection there. So I just said, look, it's obviously there's something here between us. You've got an 18-year-old daughter. I've got 2 young boys. We need to figure out this and figure this out quickly.
So she hasn't met your...
No, because actually, this isn't going to work if we don't figure it out.
Right. Okay.
And so I said, you know what? I'm going to leave it with you. Maybe that was, I don't know, not really. Should have left it with her, but I said, look. For me, it feels like it's you because you're coming out the other end of it. You're probably looking at gaining your freedom and all the rest of it. Where actually, for dating me with 2 young boys, So I said, you'll figure out what you want, and then let's go from there. And in the end, she said, well, yeah, I hadn't thought about it before. She hadn't really thought about dating someone with young kids or anything either herself. So, but we both recognised what we saw in each other and what we felt, and so here we are, 2.5 years later. But it took an intentional discussion, and I was like, you really need to think, I really need to think, and then we'll figure it out. And even then, along the way, there's still been stuff for us to figure out. But so that was because of our circumstances. So in the end, after going on Tinder and Bumble and all the other, I kind of met someone in a Facebook group who'd gone through, very close.
Let's speak on that as well. So kind of the last question I had was around where you meet people.
Yeah.
And obviously online is normal now to meet people. Do you feel like that is somewhere that you pursue, or is it somewhere that you can maybe find someone who is looking for the same sort of thing you're looking, because obviously it's online and you put in your bios and what you're looking for. Is that something that you're considering, or you just think actually I'll just find and look in the normal ways?
I'd say the strike rate through Tinder and all the rest of it is low, man. It's low. You hear the one-off stories about Tinder wedding and all the rest of it, but the strike rate is low, and that's what those apps are built on, right? The strike rate was high, their business model would collapse. So the strike rate is low, but at the same time, I didn't have anywhere else to go.
I was going to say.
I didn't have anywhere else to go. Again, the age that I'm at, most of my friends, both male and female, were all settled down in relationships. Only 1 or 2 of them weren't. So no one's going out, and not that I really want to do the club scene and bars and all the rest of it. Apart from once in a while, obviously, because I've been there, done it, got the t-shirt like we all have. So, where else do you go? It's a learning curve as well. That is like that. It's a steep learning curve going onto dating apps.
Can I sorry, just want to... sorry, literally something you said, just I wanted to just quickly jump in. Also, though, I think, and I'm not trying to make it about is it easier if you're a single mum or single dad, but I just think I think as a mum, your network is going to rally round better than your dad bro network in the sense of, I don't know, maybe I'm being naive here, but I get a sense that, and particularly once you're of a certain age as well, most people have settled down. So I just get the sense of, even if I were to get out there, who's coming with me? You know where I'm coming from? Who's coming with me? Who's coming with me anyway? So whereas I foresee a situation where I feel that women are much better at that sense of kind of, is it a collegiate kind of attitude of, oh no, come on, let's all go out and rally round. That, and I'm too tired. But the point is, you know, I had to just jump in with that.
No, you're right, and I think that there was a word that you mentioned which was literally just it's probably the most frequent word that I used last year, and that was intentional and intentionality. And I think that for us, that's what we have to do. We have to be really intentional, because as a dad, quite often those networks and those groups and those places don't really exist for us as much. So you have to be really, really intentional. Like, I've had to be really intentional about building relationships with other single dads and finding those spaces, or if it doesn't exist, creating them. And because I don't have that. I mean, most of my male friends don't have children, so I don't necessarily have that around. So I've had to be really, really, really intentional. But you're right. And in terms of dating, like I've used dating apps. Ironically, the person that I dated, which was sort of the most serious, wasn't from a dating app. But I used Hinge, and Hinge was cool. I went on quite a few dates from Hinge, and it's helpful in terms of, like you said, where do you meet people? Do you know what I mean? And when you haven't got the time and you can't go out, it's just easy to be able to do that. But if you're not intentional and you're not thinking about those things and having those conversations, then there's just no point. Do you know what I mean? It's just going to be a waste of your time. And that's what I was doing. I was finding myself, like, I don't even want to give up my Saturday night to come out on a date with you until I know X, Y, and Z. Do you know what I mean? There's certain things I need to know before I'm even going to give up my time.
I wouldn't even go on a date. Like, the first thing would be a Skype call.
Yeah.
I've had male friends. Yeah, I've had male friends.
Business meeting.
No rant, you know. I've had male friends and female friends go on using dating apps before me, and then say, person who turned up was not the same person in the profile picture. So I was like, so I'd say, let's do a Skype call, whatever the video calling app, whatever, and then, we have a few of those, and because my time was kind of the situation that I'm like, until I see who you are, I feel some level of comfort, I'm not taking that risk. And a few people are, what, you want to Skype? I'm like, yeah. On Skype, what's wrong with that? But I'm like, have you not heard all weird stories about you weird women and us men? What's kind of got to protect us? Obviously, I'm saying it tongue in cheek, but I was being partly serious in that. Like, I just don't. And because even with doing that, there was still I dated one woman who, I don't know how she managed it, but she clearly knows all her angles and everything like that. Because we turned up on a date and like, you're not your profile picture, and that's a whole different story, which you could do a whole podcast series about.
But it also gives you an over accessibility to people, right? So what happens is there's just this big pool and this big market of people, and you'll find yourself just getting bored of having the same conversations over and over. Like that initial talking and getting to know someone period, and then finding out, okay, yeah, cool, this isn't the one, and then it's incredibly monotonous and mundane, and then you just be like, you know what, I'm out, like, can't be bothered.
I still feel this all still comes back to, if you are a dad who is seriously invested in your child, just where we're at as a society, I'm not convinced society's truly got to grips with the idea of a dad who is single, who puts an active interest in their child, who wants to date. I'm not sure society's caught up to. I don't know, mate. I could be wrong,
right,
but I still think that's the issue here. That I'm not sure society's caught up to that notion.
You're right.
Whereas it's caught up to the notion of you're not really involved in your child's life, so basically you're just single. You're not a single dad. You're just single, and you happen to have a kid somewhere. Do you know what I mean? But if you're actively involved, I'm not sure how much people have got to grips with the idea of, so you're doing stuff, like you're busy. You're actually about.
That's a great point. I think this has been a really good conversation, man. I think so. Thank you so much for your honesty and sharing your experiences. Like there's probably a few single dads watching. We're not claiming to know. This is not how to. But what would you say for any single dads watching? What would your kind of final words be, or a bit of advice, guidance, or whatever? What do you want to say to single dads? Let's start with you, Adam, as you're sitting next to me.
Mouthful of water. just what I said already, just be intentional. You have to be intentional about that dating process. You have to know what it is you want. And one of the things that I found really helpful personally was changing my approach to dating, right? So quite often what happens is you meet somebody and you're asking all these questions about the other person and try and get to know them. And what can happen, what the other person can do, and what you can do unintentionally and subconsciously is if you say to me, you know, Adam, what are you looking for in a partner? And I then tell you, well, I'm looking for this, and this. Because you're trying to impress that person, you can become that thing and those characteristics that person is looking for, because that's what you have to do. You're trying to embody, and it isn't natural, and over a period of time you can't maintain it and it falls apart. So I've found that what I tend to do now in terms of my conversations is I kind of flip it. I'm like, look, this is who I am and this is what I'm about, and I don't necessarily ask what it is they want or what they're looking for. This is who I am, this is what I care about, this is what I'm about, and you can then decide for yourself whether this matches up with what you want, and in turn, do you know what I mean, you can sort of tell me about yourself and I'll decide without it being, you know, sort of like a tell me what you want, tell me what you're looking for, tell me what characteristics you like and what you go for. And I've found that to be quite helpful and quite refreshing. But yeah, that would be my tip, just be intentional.
Cool. Mash?
Stole mine. No, that last bit, nail on the head for me. I think the common mistake, like you say, is people becoming what they think they're supposed to be. And actually, the only thing I would add to yours is, and we say this no matter what your life situation is, we say this about dating, but you genuinely have to take time out and know where you're at. It's very easy, and this goes for anybody in any single state. It's very easy to confuse, what do we say again? Being alone with being lonely.
Yes.
So you can be a father and an involved father, and yes, you are alone in the sense of intimacy, that certain kind of intimacy and full and wholesome relationship, but that doesn't mean you need one. And that doesn't mean you're lonely, because that could mean that yes, you don't have that in your life, but you also aren't ready for that either. So there's that part of you, and I don't know how you do it. That's a conversation in and of itself. But you genuinely have to be honest with yourself, because you can easily go on dates and you can easily tell someone, you know what, I'm looking to get back out there and X, Y, Z. All these times now, you're not even ready for that.
Yep.
But you just assume that you have to be because you're single.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice as well. You have to take time to trust the process, and know that when you're ready, you'll know when you're ready, as opposed to trying to force that readiness. I guess is what I'd say.
Yeah.
Alec?
Yeah. Don't put too much pressure on yourself about it. You know, it's okay to have, you know, a list of these are the types of things that I want in a woman and all the rest of it. But the reality is that however you meet people, apps, introductions, other groups, all the rest of it, it will appear. It will come one way or another. And so sometimes just enjoy the process of dating if that's possible. You know, after however long, I then just looked at dating as me building a new social life. So rather than putting pressure on me meeting someone who's happily ever after and all of that, it was, you know what, I'd like to go out to here. So next date that I have, I will choose this place and we'll go and meet. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I didn't put any pressure. Once I did that, dating took on a whole different thing for me, because it just became a social thing. Yeah, I'm going out for someone. Yeah, I'm going out to just chill and relax, whatever. It's not someone that I've met before, but hey, whatever. And yeah, that changed. You know, it was a good change for me in that I chilled out, relaxed about it, and I think that reflected then in, I guess, probably the people who I was choosing as well, because I think I was a bit looser with the strict requirements. But I think I chilled out on dates a lot more as well because of that.
Great. Thanks, guys. It's been an amazing conversation. Thanks so much. We've been the Daily Debates podcast, brought to you by MusicFootballFatherhood.com. Get involved in the conversation. Use the hashtag. We want to know what you think, what resonated with you, what do you agree with, what don't you agree with. Drop your comments on our Twitter handle at MFFonline_, and on Instagram too. Till next time, peace out.